Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Tullis Creek Instagram Live conversation. My guest this week is somebody who I think is going to be a ton of fun. That is, if you have been seeing the promos, this is Adam Montiel, who is local podcast host, event host, radio personality, and just great wine communicator. So I'm excited, if you don't know Adam, for us to dive into his story a little bit. I get to turn the tables on him since he's usually the master interviewer talking to other people, and that should be really fun. But while we are waiting for people to join, as I always do, I am going to share a few photos of what's going on here at the vineyard. And the big thing is that this is a point in the growing season where you're starting to see grapes out there. So this is a Grenache cluster. These are little, like, pea-sized or even a little smaller than that berries. And that is not every grape is this far advanced. That is the most advanced that I could find out in the vineyard. You still have sections like, let me find Roussanne, where it's still basically finishing up flowering. So it's not universally as far along as Grenache, but you're seeing progress fast, and that's exciting. We are also out in the vineyard trying to go through and regulate the growth. I don't know how well you could see in this photo, but if you look, you can see some of the canes, the lateral canes that we've broken off that are sitting on the ground underneath. This is also that Roussanne block, trying to open up the canopy to the flow of light and air and mean that we have to intervene less later. So we're just trying to get the structure right, making sure that there's not like sideways canes growing out that are blocking the flow through the fruit zone. We have also been working on redoing our entrance. Those of you who are coming for a visit this summer will get to see a new bench with the Tablas and Beaucastel signs. We've redone the plantings. I think it's super pretty. Just trying to make it be a little more visually friendly as we have people approach. And then last little piece of what's going on in the vineyard. If you've been following the story of the vineyard block that we grafted over from Tannat over to some of our whites, we have half of it grafted over to Picardin, half of it grafted to Clairette Blanche. And this is the bud sprouting out of that Tannat trunk, which I think is super exciting. I'm excited to have more whites. Speaking of more whites, we are about to embark on a bottling run. We have some of our varietal estate whites like Grenache Blanc, you can see in this tank, like Marsanne. We also have the Côte Tablas Blanc and the Viognier that are going into bottle tomorrow. So the white wine cavalry is on the way a little bit if you have been missing some of our whites. And then, of course, we will be putting all of those into the kegs that we use to pour at our tasting room. So new white wines on the way, new white grapes coming in the vineyard, harvest progressing. Things are looking really good. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. I am going to invite Adam to join, and I can't wait for you to spend some time with him. So sending the invitation through now. All be as straightforward as our test was yesterday. Hey, Adam.
Hey now, how are you? Good to see you.
Good. Good to see you too. So I don't know if you were on. I gave a
I
really
was.
super quick introduction into you. And one of the things I'm excited about is that I think one of your real talents is asking good questions and getting
Mhm.
people to kind of tell their stories in a compelling way. So I'm excited to turn the tables and try to do the same for you.
Come on, this doesn't happen often. I'm a little nervous, I gotta say.
Awesome. It's good for you, I'm sure.
I'm sure it is, yeah.
Okay, so I would love you to talk a little bit about kind of where you grew up, what that was like, and specifically if like was wine on your family table as you were growing up?
I grew up in Agora Hills, which is the northern suburbs of LA County, right before you hit Ventura County, Westlake, Thousand Oaks, and then you kind of make your way up Santa Barbara through here. So maybe a couple of 2.5 hours away. Gore Hill's where I grew up. And my mom didn't drink, not even soda, nothing with even fizziness. She drank iced tea and water and coffee. That was it. My dad would have maybe, if we were going out, he'd have like a couple glasses of Chablis or just kind of love, a little bit of wine, but nothing more than a glass or two. So I really didn't learn all about wine in the house, but I knew that my dad liked a glass of it. Like wherever we go, it'd be a half a liter of Chablis.
So you moved to the Central Coast more or less the same time I did. So 2003, I believe.
Exactly. Right.
So how did that come about?
So I was in radio and I was in the beginning of my radio career and I spent 25 years in radio and I wanted to kind of evolve in radio. What you do is you move from market to market and with the hopes of my hope was to be back in LA. I mean, LA is the number 2 market in the country. It's where I grew up. It's where I'm familiar with. And I thought, gosh, if you can get a great radio job in LA, you'll make sick money. You'll be back around where you came from and this will be great. I moved here in '03 and it didn't take long for me to kind of look around and go, gosh, I don't want to leave here. Like, I want to stay here. And if I'm going to, radio is not an easy thing to kind of make a home at. I need to figure out how to like really dig into the community and find a way to do it.
And did you always know that radio was sort of what your passion was and what you wanted to do?
I knew I wanted to do TV or radio, and I knew that radio, at least at the time, felt like it allowed more of one's personality rather than just saying what you're told to say. And who knew if I didn't think I was like, you know, a good looking enough person to be an actor, or can I play an act? Can I be an actor? I didn't really think that way. I loved theater and stuff, but I just wanted like to kind of get my personality out there and just talk to people, connect with people, and radio felt like the way to do that. And I knew I had always loved radio since I was a kid. I would be 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, calling Kiss FM, KRS 101, Power 106 when I was old enough, and asking, hey, can I introduce a song? Can I? So I had a very early enthusiasm for broadcast radio. I would, you have your double cassette decks, and I would hit play on one and record on the other, and then record my voice talking up intros to songs. So I definitely had radio broadcasting in my blood, and always really, at some point, wanted to figure it out. And then as I kind of looked at both TV and radio, I thought just radio was the way to go.
And okay, so you're in the Central Coast. It's 2003. Like, how long after you got here did you feel like you started to get connected with the local wine community?
That's such a good question. So I was working part time because when I moved up here for radio, it was only part time. So I had to do some other jobs to kind of like supplement, being able to live here. And I started a part time job at a place called Vinoteca. It's now Saranea, right?
Yeah.
Right across from the park. Vinoteca was this wine bar that the Reeds had back in the early 2000s. And mind you, this is when, I mean, yeah, Via Creek was here, but as far as like upscale nightlife, it was very new. I mean, there was like Busey's and O'Grady's. I mean, the nightlife was very dive barish and Paso was very limited, right? So I worked at Vinoteca and I just kind of, to be honest, BS'd my way through wine. And I used my theater background to go, oh, wood chips. I didn't even know what I was saying. I made it up. And then there was one day we're doing this Winemaker Wednesday thing we
You
would do.
didn't make it up. It's called improv.
Yeah. It's improv, right? But we were doing this winemaker Wednesday, and I remember the wines. It was J. Lore was the winemaker for that day, and it was their Cuvée series, a 1998, a 97, a 98, and a 99 vertical of their Cuvée series. And if you don't know, it's like, well, but for one who might not know listening, that is these upper echelon wines of their portfolio that show homage to like Pauillac, the PAU, or STE for Saint Emilion, and POM for Pomerol. So is that a vertical? I've never even heard of a vertical. I tasted these wines. I was, oh my gosh, like I'm changed. These wines are so good. I'm like going back. Well, I want to know more about wine. What's that winery different than this one? Why is Zinfandel different from Cabernet? And I was hooked. I was hooked.
Super cool. And how long after that did you start the Cork Dorks?
So Cork Dorks was a little while later because I had moved to a couple different. There's not many radio arms, in the Central Coast. There's AGM. There was a company called Clear Channel, or then El Dorado at the time. So I had moved from one to the other for a better opportunity, and then AGM brought me back. So 2010 is when Jeremy and I, my good friend, and then at the time co-host Jeremy West, we just were taking our new love and understanding for wine, and I told the program director, I just want to make a show combining the two. And he said, call it Cork Dorks and you can do it. And we're like, shoot, call it whatever. So, and that's where Cork Dorks was born, where we would just go to these different wineries and ask the dumbest questions. There were, we just came with it like, hey, we don't understand this, but we want to learn more. And it was Cork Dorks was born, and thus really the rest of what I do was born then.
Yeah, it feels like that was a real leaping off point. Um,
Absolutely.
so you, I feel like, continued like in that same vein for most of the next decade plus, but you had a big career transition, of course, in 2023 when, like, I'm sure this was a shock to you. It was a shock to the rest of the community when we found out that you had been laid off from the job that, like, we all associated you with.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it was a shock for you, but I've heard you talk about how you feel like it was also an opportunity to reinvent yourself. Um, can you talk about that moment?
Yeah, it was a tough moment because first of all, when a lot of people get laid off, it doesn't end up on the cover of the Sunday paper. It was embarrassing. There was a lot of self-doubt. You don't see all the yes, there's a lot of like the outflowing of like, oh, there's a blessing in here or this or that. You don't see that then. So it was a very, and I read some poem and I can't remember the poet, but it was right at that time and it was perfect how this poem found me. And the idea of the poem was the senses you feel when you're pushed out of the nest. And you didn't want to be pushed out of the nest, but the way the air feels, the way necessity hits you, the way everything feels so different when you're pushed out of the nest. And I kind of took that, what I learned from that poem, and then this outpouring that I really got from the community. And although there were like job offers, like, hey, you want to be our national sales director? You want to do this? You want to be our ambassador? I really wanted to stay with like the storytelling that I was doing in broadcast radio. So I decided to take those shows that I was doing on the air. One was my morning show, Up and Adam. That was a daily 6 to 10 show, AM. And then the Cork Dorks, like you said, and do them both independently. And now I call that the Poor because I don't own the name the Cork Dorks. And of course, in 2020, we started Where Wine Takes You with Paso Wine. And that has been such a blessing. And that really got me into the podcast space far before I knew I needed that space. We started that in 2020 when a lot of people were home, and I got told by the company I worked for, we don't want you going to interview winemakers anymore. Like we're there. I don't know if they're obviously nervous. Everybody was in a weird mode then. So
Okay.
corporately liability, they're like, we don't want you to go see anyone. So I was like, well, I still want to tell these stories. I feel now is the time, whether it's as a radio station or as a storyteller, I want to be there for those wineries more than ever right now. And I don't want to stop interviewing them. And if I want to take, if we can do it safely and I can feel comfortable. So, Joel Peterson and I started the Where Wine Takes You podcast as a partnership. And it's now, being downloaded in all 50 states, over 100 countries. And it's like really, it's a top 10 wine podcast in the country because he believed in what we could do then. It's really special.
So let's talk about podcasts. So do you remember your first, like, experience with a podcast when you first discovered podcasts?
Oh man, I remember like hearing like Adam Curry doing one. He was an old MTV VJ and he was on the forefront of it, but I didn't really listen to them. And podcasts to me in the beginning, remember I came from broadcasting, so I might come into this as a little bit of a, like there's wine snobs. I might come into this as a little bit of a broadcast snob. But like when blogs came up, everyone thought they could be a writer, and it took a while for this to surface the good bloggers, the good writers in that new space. I think podcasting was and is the same thing. Now that everyone, just like on Spotify, has the ability to be an artist, everyone has the ability to be a podcaster now. And you can put it up on Podbean or Blueberry, whatever. And now my podcast can sit next to anyone's, and that includes the Joe Rogans, and it also like the biggest ones in the space, and includes the ones that maybe not a lot of people listen to. So it really opens it up to everyone to put your content out there and just see where it can go. So I think in the very beginning, I was a little bit, kind of with a little bit of a side eye with to the podcast space because I came from radio and I love broadcast radio and I believe in it. But here's the thing, radio is very much changing and we're no longer in the business of broadcasting. We're in the business of narrowcasting, and digital is king. And this is the future. The fact that I can be listening to a podcast, washing dishes, put it on pause, get it in my car, it comes up on my smart dash. This is the future. Terrestrial radio can't do that. Advertisers have seen that, and so goes the story of radio. And unfortunately, a lot of legacy media, print has changed, newspapers have changed. We're watching. The our weather guy, Dave Hobby, left KSBY after 20 years. Why? His business is changing around him, underneath him, and these people who want to stay communicating and telling stories, they've got to pivot. They got to figure something out.
Yeah, I mean, you see the same thing in wine media. You see like wine magazines. You think of how many actual print
Yeah,
magazines there are these days, and the relative importance of that versus other media. It's like wildly different.
totally true. Totally.
So can you talk a little bit about kind of what your approach is to telling stories? Like how do you like if how do you go about figuring out what the story is to tell, and then building your episodes around that?
I can go on the surface and I can go deep. And the reason I say that is because I'm talking to the folks of the Central Coast Writers Conference about doing a panel for them or leading a talk for them about interviews. And I have noticed, especially in the last 17 months when I took my shows independent, that the way I've always looked at an interview as the most important thing I can do, but really dissecting it and breaking it down. After I did the TEDx this year, I was like, it makes me want to break down everything and understand everything on a nuclear level. And I've kind of done that with not just an interview, but with my style of interviews. I mean, I think it's a beautiful recipe when you listen to someone who you like that does interviews. It's this recipe of yes, prep, yes, instinctual, extemporaneous conversation, but also letting things chill, letting things listening, right? That's important. So there's a lot of different things that have to play in, but I like to, one, every interview, I would love to earn the phrase, wow, I've never been asked that before, or that was such a great question. I really strive for that every single interview. I don't get it on some, I get it on some, and it's great. And sometimes I get a response that's like, whoa, like you really earned that. So I really want the person I'm interviewing, they have to be the star. It's peeling those layers back. It's not about me, it's about them. And when you can do that and a person can listen from anywhere in the world and feel like a fly on a wall in the room you're in, that's when you're like, okay, we did it.
Amazing. Yeah, I remember there's a series that NPR did that they actually published called Driveway Moments, where they
Mhm.
were talking about like the times where you didn't want to get out of your car because you wanted to hear how the story ended,
Yeah.
so you're sitting in the driveway waiting for something to finish. I think that's kind of a great
Yeah.
aspiration for any storyteller.
And that was born with broadcast radio because before you couldn't get out of your car and continue the story. Now you literally can.
Yeah,
But back in the day, you'd be like, hold on, I'm like, what's Howard Stern saying right now? I can't go into work right now. I'm going to be late. So it's perfect. It's why I got into not just why I like broadcasting, but why I love interviews.
yeah, I bet. Okay, so you mentioned the TEDx talk. What was that experience like?
That was scary. AF, as the kids say. That was scary. I got offered to do a TEDx because the people with TEDx locally saw my transition from broadcast radio into independent. They saw the way it panned out in the media with the community. And they saw how, I mean, when Up and Adam debuted 6 weeks after I got laid off, it was 6 Mondays after I got laid off, it spiked at the number 23 podcast on the daily news charts. I mean, that's right up there with like it was like above CNN Daily and
Right.
20 spots away from the Daily from New York Times. I mean, it debuted really huge, and I was like, whoa! And now it doesn't sit up that high right now, but it's charting. It's in the top 200 podcasts often every with the Daily News, Where Wine Takes You, top 100 or top 10 wine podcasts. So once when we kind of were able to dial that in and the people saw that, they said, hey, would you do a TEDx talk on our theme of determination? And first of all, just the invitation to do a TEDx, you don't say no. It's like, and one thing I learned about this ecology of the TEDx space is that there are people who do this for a living, and their whole bucket list is what the word I was looking for. Their bucket list is to do a TEDx. They feel that TEDx they'll be the next Brene Brown. It'll kick everything off for them. And this just kind of came to me, and I was like, well, I would be a fool to say no to this. So now I have to figure out how to do it. So I talk to people like Elaine Chukan Brown. I talk to people in other spaces outside of wine, but people who talk to people. I talked to one of the co-founders of MindBody, who does a lot of speeches and stuff. I was just like, what do you do? What do you employ when you're addressing someone for a long period of time? And yeah, sure, I've been behind the mic 4 hours a day, 6 to 10 a.m. It's very different than having a captivated crowd, and not just the one in front of you, because I mean, there's 1,300 seats at the Pack at Cal Poly, but it's the many people that you know are going to be seeing that video with that little red dot later on. So how can I bring those people here? What can I say about this area? What can I say about myself and my story and the theme determination? And it was really well received. I was scared to death to do it. I remember there was like this green room area behind the stage where everyone's like chilling and hanging out. I went to because I know the Pack, I went to the far end where I knew there was this other theater that'd be empty. And I just did my speech like for hours before it was my time to go up. And when I did it, it went really well. It went really well. So it was a really beautiful moment, and I would try something like that again. I think it was really fun.
Were there any particularly memorable, like people who reached out before or after that, or in response connected with what you said? Like what happened after?
Yeah, I mean, stuff from faculty at Cal Poly. Of course, people will come up to me now. They'll come up to me and some will go, "Oh yeah, I love where one takes you," or "Up and Adam," but they'll be like, "Oh, your TEDx. I was in there. I was in the room with your TEDx." Or my kid needed some community things to do, so I took him to that TEDx, and we spent hours there. And this is my story from that. And I would get so many people saying that they saw it and were moved by it. The DJ, there was a really well-known Central Coast DJ named DJ Bob, and he's done plenty of events. He was the DJ that day who ran the sound, and he texted me after, and we knew each other like tangentially, and but he found my number or got it from the organizers and texted me this beautiful, just such a sweet text afterwards about how he felt and like related to a lot of the things that I said. And then he passed away a couple weeks after that. So like, I mean, just out of nowhere. So that what he said then, and the fact that he took the time to just say it, like that was so nice. He just like, "What's his number?" Okay, that meant a lot to me. So there were a lot of people, and going back to like Elaine Chukan Brown and these people who I pinged and was like saying, "Hey, oh my God, what you helped me with, what you said, thank you for that," because learning what these people have done and being able to pick from that, it was invaluable.
So cool. So cool. Well, kudos for taking that on. Um,
Yeah,
okay.
if you're listening, go watch that video because I need all the views I can get. So go check out TEDx Adam Montiel.
Um, okay. So I remember one of the things that it was funny when I told my wife Megan that we were going to be talking today. She's like, "Okay, you've totally got to ask him about his dog." Like,
Uh,
so I remember you had a viral moment back, I don't know, but 10 years ago probably,
yeah. Hmm.
with your dog Allie for having set up a GoPro and filmed her breaking into your fridge in really quite like
Yeah.
masterpiece fashion. Um, can you talk about can you tell that story and then talk about what the experience of that virality was like afterwards?
It's such an interesting story. I had the greatest dog, and it was the greatest dog until I got my new dog. I got Georgina. It took me 5 years after I lost Allie to even be ready for another dog. And I always I told Georgia when I first got, I'm like, "I'm sorry, I don't know that I could ever love a dog like Allie." And then it was only because of Allie's love that I look at Georgie and I feel like I love him even more. So Allie was such an important gift to me after my mom passed away in '02. I had Allie from a puppy to when she passed away at 13 and a half. And in that course of time, she was too smart for her own good and mine at times, this lab. Like, she would get into my freezer, and I had a drawer freezer, like where the freezer's on the bottom. And because I had taught her to get into like a drawer that had her toys in it, she saw that drawer and would go into, and I noticed her getting into the freezer. And I'm like, "This is crazy. What am I doing?" So I set up a GoPro camera in the kitchen and just put it up there. I put things that if she got to them, it wouldn't be bad. Like I put like tortillas in there and a dog toy, you know. So I set her up. I leave. I go to the store. You can hear my car leave in the video. And if you go to YouTube, you can just go to Yellow Lab Opens Fridge, and that's Allie. And so she just brings things out of the fridge, walks away, comes back, and then she's like opening the side by sides using her mouth and the hinges to open it. So this thing went totally viral, and within a day, I had like 25,000 views on Facebook. I put it on YouTube. It went nuts. I woke up to 24 emails from licensing companies the next day, and I learned about this ecology that I had never learned about. The viral video space is something so interesting, and what you do is you license these videos to, it's almost like that video has an agent, and they will work, whether it's Junkin or Storyful or BuzzFeed or whatever, they will license the video, and only a limited amount of companies have what they call content ID. And what that does, it goes on your YouTube video. If you give someone permission to put content ID on a specific video, not your channel, but a video, what it does is anyone who goes and copies that video and puts it on their page, for because it's viral now, everyone's trying to take advantage of it, you will get the credit. So YouTube thought of a way, if we can keep this like special tool and allow folks who are getting taken advantage of, if they have content ID, all those views will go to them. So I went with Storyful. I was learning like, oh, do you do 70-30 in your favor, 80-20? I was like negotiating, and I would just say, how about 80-20? Like, okay, great. And so you can like negotiate the amount of off YouTube, on YouTube. So then the video just started going crazy. And what my deal with Storyful allowed me to do was to also license the video myself if I wanted to. And I realized that there was a lot of like Japanese shows that were hitting me up. And I would just be like, how much does it charge to use your video for 30 seconds? And I'd be like, I don't know, $600. And I'm like, okay. So a Japanese show would use a second of it, and then ADT and the people who do the security, ADT, like, we want to use 1.5 seconds. We pay 1,500. I'm like, okay, okay, good. Like this video was just like making money, and it's only got a few million. I mean, some viral videos they got 15, 16 million views. This has maybe got a few, but it was just because it's dogs and babies. I learned they're the gold mine when it comes to viral videos, and it just hit. It's a really sweet video. And then Animal Planet came up to me later on, and oh no, it was National Geographic. They had a show where they did World's Funniest Dogs. Allie was going to be number 2 of that year, and they wanted to recreate it. So they came to, I lived in a different spot. We recreated the video. Allie did it again, but she was getting older, and took her a little longer. And it kind of, I reflected on, wow, like, we did this video a year ago. Now we're kind of recreating it for the show. And although it seems neat, it's just making me see Allie get a little older. And then by the time the show aired, Allie had just passed away. But that was a gift. Allie was a gift, and that video was a gift that makes her live on forever to more than just me. So
I just rewatched it this morning for the first
yeah.
time since it first came out, and like her ingenuity in like seriously like gripping the hinges of the opening
Yeah.
doors with her jaws and opening them up was just
Yeah.
I can't even imagine what you must have thought the first time that you actually saw it.
Yeah. Oh, you hear that, Georgie? You need a viral video, Georgie. Get to it.
Okay, so I'd love you to talk a little bit about kind of the other non kind of podcasty things that you do. I know you do a lot of event hosting.
Mhm.
What else is in the Adam Montiel world right now?
Yeah, so a lot of events here, and I've been hosting events for the last several years. And recently, I feel like it's even gotten a little bit deeper. Like, we just did a 3-night event for Lumina Alliance, which is a fantastic local organization that helps victims of intimate partner violence and sexual assault. And that 3-day event, they raised over $500,000. And I've never hosted a 3-day gala. You know what I mean? Like, we're different crowds every day. You're talking about a really heavy message, but a very worthy cause. And then, of course, I love my events with like the cancer support community, or all those things that have aspects that are near and dear to me for personal reasons. Like I lost my mom to cancer and things like that. And then there's like the Austin Hope Golf championship before Wine Fest, and those events are fun too. So I don't know, it's been really cool because although I love doing the broadcast stuff, and the in front of people stuff always was a little bit more like, I don't know why, I get a little bit more nervous, I get a little bit more edgy on them, but they're fun, and you just let yourself go, and they can be very fun, and they're very rewarding. And I love being out there in the community, especially for these nonprofits.
Yeah, I'm sure. Okay, I have one more real question, and then a couple of the like the normal end of interview follow up questions. But the last real
Right.
question is, um, so the name of the podcast that you do with the PRWCA is Where Wine Takes You,
Yeah.
and I'm curious. So where has wine taken Adam Montiel?
Oh my gosh, it's such a great question. I remember when I first did the Cork Dorks, we get an invite to go to ZAP. Zinfandel Advocates and Producers, they had this event up at from Fort Mason to the Concourse, then they scaled it down Presidio, and it is this event that celebrates Zinfandel. But back in the day, this was like walking into an area where they would hand you a loaf of bread and a glass and say, "Don't die, just don't die." It was really a you know what show. But I remember walking around there with the likes of like Josh Beckett and Christian TG, and they're like, "Hey, this is Joel Peterson, the real Joel Peterson. This is, and he's of course big Zen guy. Here's Ken Rosenblum. Here's all these people. Here's Gus Gamba." And I interviewed these people from outside of where I was lucky enough to get all these interviews, like you, Joe Bard, and all the people locally. And they're going, "Wow, that was a good question. That was the, oh, thanks for what you're doing." I'm like, "Whoa, here we are talking to," so then we go up and visit. We went up to Napa and a couple Napa places. Our desire was to find Napa places that had the spirit of people like Paso, you know? And then we did a show in Bordeaux. And then, so, I mean, so it really wine and the idea, and Wes Hagen, I would hate to steal it, but he always has this great way of talking about the power of opening a bottle and coming to table with those you love or want to get to know more and what wine can do. And we've learned that. I mean, I've learned that, especially just being able to go to France and interview somebody like a sixth generation negociant in Bordeaux, or getting a chance to go into Chateau Margaux, or I mean, you set me up with the most beautiful tour at Beaucastel. I mean, what a beautiful spot when you get to go to these like historical places and really see behind the scenes to what they're doing. And Chateau de Beaucastel is a great example because their new reinvention and their reimagination, and I encourage people to check it out. It's so incredibly loving to where they came from and the earth, and but just gorgeous too, and artistic and great. It's really fun to see all the different places from, sure, outside the Central Coast, but even overseas, and even did this like a dude's house who's got a cool cellar and brings out a 1955 Vis because he heard the podcast and wants to show off a bottle of wine. You're like, wow, like wine has taken me to a lot of really incredible places and up to some really incredible tables.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that makes wine so special, and I love the way that you mentioned what Wes says because I
Mm.
he's very good at expressing this. But
Yeah,
one of the things I think about a lot that like the size of a bottle of wine means that it is something which is meant to be shared. Like people are never
yeah,
drinking a bottle of wine. You should not be drinking a bottle of wine by yourself,
yeah.
but not the way that it's done. They're generally opened and enjoyed around a table. So like it has a social aspect. It has a time travel aspect that you
Yeah.
can have a bottle of wine that reflects a specific place, a specific time, and yet you can take it with you to other places and other times.
That's
It's
so true. I love thinking of like the song that was big. Like, somebody opened up, like I was at John Munch's place before we lost him, and he was just like, we're just like throw a napkin up here and whatever, wherever it sticks, we'll open up that bottle. It's just some dusty Adelaide bottle from, like '02 or 1996, or, it's incredible. And then you taste them, you're like, oh my God, what was the music? That was Warren G in 1996. Or that was, what was the price of gas? Good God, in 1996. Or talk about a time capsule. I mean, opening up a bottle and seeing, even if it's not the most like beautiful bottle, like it didn't open up perfectly, it's still opened up. And it still like came to you and you came to it. And it's really exciting. And nothing does that like wine.
super cool. Okay, I cannot believe that it has been half an hour, but it has been half an
Oh
hour,
my
and I'm
gosh, wow.
pleased to have an hour. But I did want to ask you: do you have other like things you want to do, like projects that you would love to be involved in? I mean, maybe these are things you're already working on and you can share. Maybe it's like this wish list of, man, one day I would love to do this.
Yeah. I I feel like I'm kind of thinking of ways to kind of work with, and some of the things are kind of not really in the mix, but wheels are starting in the motion. So it's like I don't know how much to answer and how much not, but I want to just figure out more ways to speak to people in different forms. Like I love Madeline at Wine Folly and what the Wine Folly is doing. And we had lunch the last time she was out here for Wine Fest, and it's just like, gosh, how could we figure out a way to, work together and like do? I mean, we were so like-minded in wanting to make wine approachable, and what she has done for making wine approachable is so admirable. Like literally, one of the times I interviewed her talking about this Iranian woman who emailed her on asking her questions on how to make wine, and she's pinging her winemaker friends and telling them, and this Iranian person secretly making wine with the help of wine fall. It was just so cool. So I love the idea of being able to connect with people, and I like the wine channels that are making wine approachable, especially because I feel wine is having a tougher time right now, and I just know that there's so many things about wine that are so special, and I'm confused when you see like neo-temperance movements and all these kinds of odd things that throw stuff into the spokes, when it's undeniable the joy of just one bottle with a table full of people can provide. I think of tourism here. I mean, Paso, we just sat through this Travel Paso roundup and had Dr. Chris Thornburg out here talking about the economy. And right now, Paso might be 20 something percent of the rooms in SoCal, San Luis Obispo County. But by 2030, and that's not more than 5 years away, we're going to be like 60% of the rooms in this county are going to be in Paso. So things are changing. Tourism, being able to look at tourism and to use my storytelling for tourism excites me beyond with people like Travel Paso, with people like SlowCal, and then figuring out other ways, other people that have wine stories to tell. Like, I don't necessarily, I feel I've gotten to a point in my path where I feel I am best blessed when I'm a tool for others. Like, it's not like the Adam Montiel show, like it's all about like this. I love being just like, hey, let me ask the questions. Let's make it like I'm going on a cruise in a couple weeks to Bordeaux with Eric Jensen, Booker, Stefan Aseo, L'Aventure. Oh my God, that's going to be a show, right? But just the idea of like, hey, these guys are the stars. Let's be honest. How can we just ask them questions, let people who are there to see them feel more connected to them, ask the right questions, peel back the layers, get Eric to say something he never would have said before, which is probably pretty easy, and really be a conduit. That's the most rewarding part of what I think I want my future to look like.
Awesome. Thank you, Adam. Thank you for the work that you're doing, making wine accessible, telling wine stories, making it fun. Um, it's a super critical piece of the wine infrastructure here, and it wouldn't be the same without you. So
That means a lot, especially from you and especially from a brand like yours. I mean, I think of those old conversations with you and your dad in the room that we just talked in when we were celebrating those 14 varietals. I mean, it's really exciting to see that and to hear that from you. So thank you. It means really, really a ton.
you're so welcome. So how do people who want to learn more, learn projects you're working on, follow you? What's the best way for them to do that?
AdamMontiel.com is my website. It's got links to all the shows I do, which is Daily Up and Adam, available wherever you podcast. Like this week we had on, remember Superman, Dean Cain? He was on the show with a new movie. I had the guy who won NBC's The Voice on today. But then it's like I'm talking to the gals from Lumina Alliance about Pride Month tomorrow. So it's local. There's things that are national within the podcast. So Up and Adam is daily wherever you get your podcast. The Pour, which is coming on more regularly, about bi-weekly now. And then Where Wine Takes You, as of this year, started going weekly. And Where Wine Takes You, FeedSpot called it the #3 podcast on their list of top 100 podcasts. Like I'm super excited what Paso Wine and I are doing together. I love the whole team at Paso Wine, from Joel, Krista, Chris, all the way down, and I just love the work that they're doing. They're really, I mean, look, I'll say this last thing. We were talking about Wes Hagen earlier, who's from Santa Barbara. People have been driving through Santa Barbara to come to Paso. Paso is a destination. It's not really quick to get to. And what the Paso Robles Wine Country Alliance has been doing for the last many, many years, putting Paso on the map and making it approachable, but still keeping that character, there's nothing like it.
Yeah, I hear that again and again when I visit wineries, winemakers from other regions, other wine countries. They all talk about how jealous they are that we have the PRWCA telling our story.
But it's really and you guys, the members. I mean, it's the reason why a show like mine was able to become what it has, because your open minds, open books, open hearts, open cellars. Ask whatever you want. Come in here, I'll stick up a table. There's a power plug and let's go to town. You guys saying yes to me over the years has literally enabled me to do what I do on that front. And that heart is, I mean, you go, oh, I need a bulldog pup. Oh, I'll bring one over there. Like you guys have been doing this and helping each other out for so long, and you're making other wineries look bad.
Uh,
You guys are so good at it.
but no, I agree. I think the Paso Wine community is super special.
Yeah.
It really is all for one for all kind of place.
Yeah.
Awesome. Adam Montiel, thank you so much for taking a chunk out of your Wednesday
Thank you.
to tell your story. Thank you for all your work telling all of our great stories over the last couple of decades.
Thank you for having me very much, Jason.
Awesome. Okay. Cheers, everybody. Hope you have a lovely beginning to your summer, and I will see you all in a few weeks.